Today I'm going to teach you how to get to Masters playing Kayn and Aatrox. I recently hit Masters again playing this specific deck. Let's go ahead and explain how you're going to play or how you're going to level up and think about your level up design when you're playing Kayn and Aatrox. First, let's talk about Kayn. When you're playing Kayn, you're generally not going to summon them with the Shadow Assassin. The reason for that is that Shadow Assassin is very easy to kill and not constantly healing themselves. Shadow Assassin is generally you'll play it if you're 1 or 2 turns away from being able to destroy the enemy nexus. That is the only cases that I've seen Shadow Assassin work for me. If you can find another opportunity, show it to me, leave it in the comments, but personally I think Shadow Assassin will only work if you're finding an opportunity to win through the elusive perk. You will generally summon Kayn as Rust. The reason for this is it's constantly going to be applying pressure. You're constantly going to be destroying units on the enemy board. It has overwhelm, so you're also going to be applying pressure to the enemy nexus while healing your own nexus. It is incredibly difficult to deal with Rust once he starts going because it's also getting the Corrupted Scythe, which does 1+1+. Very, very frustrating to play against. Very easy to set up, and all you have to do is just make sure that Rust stays in play as long as possible. Let's talk about Aatrox. Aatrox is an incredibly good unit. The reason for this is that it heals your nexus on spawn 2. Every time they do damage, 2. Not only that, they can also be drawn through the Darken build, right? Obviously. The level up is very valuable, but it's very difficult to have available to you at all times because it's very easy to simply play one spell that costs someone 6 mana and then kill it. Destroy your Aatrox. Make sure that when you're playing Aatrox, you have something to defend it with or something in mind as to how you're going to play another Aatrox or how you're going to be able to take advantage of the Aatrox level up. As soon as Aatrox levels up, your opponent is now going to be looking for ways to get rid of your Aatrox because it's now going to be really hard for you to draw another Aatrox moving forward. The Darkened Blade will stay in your hand, but you won't necessarily be able to do much with it. Once World Ender gets played, your Aatrox will go from a 6/6 to a 10/10. Think about that and be very actively wary of how you're going to take advantage of that. Going back to it, Darkened allies cost 5 less. All weapons that you will see with a Darken, right, for example the Zolanim, cost 6, lowers its cost to 5, but only if Aatrox is still in play. If Aatrox is not in play, you're going to lose a lot of value. Be playing a lot of weapons and a lot of Darkened weapons to be able to ramp up, and when you summon Aatrox, the World Ender is available to you. You have enough mana to be able to play it as soon as possible. Does that mean that you will play World Ender first thing first? No. Be aware of your map, be aware of the situation. Only play World Ender if you know you could take advantage of it the next turn, because you'll probably run out of mana and think, how am I going to be able to use World Ender? Aatrox's ability to summon more weapons as units, as followers, and then pressure from that point forward. Something else I wanted to mention before we start looking into gameplay, Momentous Choice and the Expanse's Protection are very important and pivotal cards to hold on to. Do not play this on a useless unit. Do not play this on a unit that you feel is not required to stay on your board. If you're playing these cards on your 1-cost units, such as Burrow Cultist and the Forsaken Bakai, it's not worth it. Do not use them all the time on them. When is it a good time and when is it effective? When there is a weapon already on your Forsaken Bakai, when you're barely at 2 mana, round 2, you cannot summon a single other unit, you have to use it on them. That is the cases where you want to use it on it. But you're 4 mana, you play Forsaken Bakai, they do something to get rid of it, to kill it. Do not heal it or do not keep it alive, because the next turn you're playing something that's more effective or more costly. In this case, you can summon Kayn. But if you already wasted your spells, such as Momentous Choice, on your Forsaken Bakai, now when they want to kill your Kayn, it's going to be a lot harder for you to be able to keep the Kayn alive. Be aware, do not use these spells ineffectively. Be aware of how your opponent wants to deal with you and how you want to deal with your opponent. Only use a Momentous Choice in very specific situations, when you are low on mana, when you know the next round you're only going to have 3 mana, and when you cannot play Kayn until the 5 mana, and that's when you're thinking and actively wondering, how and what am I going to play next turn? Don't just think of the turn that you are playing right now and keeping everything alive. You do not have to keep everything alive. Keep things alive that are valuable. Keep things alive ahead of the game. things that haven't been summoned. You have to think about those units. You have to think about Aatrox. If I summon Aatrox next round, is it going to be able to stay alive if I use Momentous Choice right now? Think of those things, and if you do not, you're going to make a lot of misplays. Be very aware. Generally, you don't want to use Momentous Choice as an aggression. If you're at round 3, you're attacking with Forsaken Bakai, it has 2 mana or 2 damage, right? Do not use it. If you're going to be able to destroy the enemy nexus with Momentous Choice, that's a good time to use it. Do not use it as a starting and as an aggression way to go forward. Best combo, Ranger Knight and Darkened Spear. That's all I'm going to say. Put them together, attack through 2 times, and you're going to get a big stack. But don't be incredibly dependent on Darkened Spear. You don't really need to. You can honestly succeed without even having to play Darkened Spear at all throughout the whole game. I personally have made that mistake of wanting to constantly be playing with a Darkened Spear. You do not have to, and I think it's a big mistake that even I make, of wanting to make the Darkened Spear as strong as possible and take as much advantage of it, but you don't have to. Just be aware. When you're starting the game, you have to also think about what do I want to play and what am I looking for. When you're playing Kayn Aatrox, you need to start with a weapon. So much of your deck is heavily dependent on you having a weapon. Can you win without a weapon in your hand? No, you cannot. Aatrox and Kayn in your hand in the beginning is also worthless as hell because you have so many cards in your deck that are going to put it together. This is a starting hand for a winning game. What you should get rid of is anything that you feel isn't necessary. In this case, you can say Ambitious Cultist, Shadowblade Fanatic are required. I can keep the Ranger Knight because I'm still going to have Tough on it, and it's a 4-3. And I can also keep Forsaken Bakai with the expectation that I'm going to be able to predict. Remember, these things you have to be aware of when you're starting the game. If you look at my hand right now, it is terrible. But the only reason I'm able to succeed in this game is because I kept Forsaken Bakai with the intent of drawing a weapon with it. Here's another example of my draw. You know, it's pretty bad. Kayn and the Unforgiving Cold. The reason I don't get rid of Ranger Knight specifically, even though I do want to get rid of as much as possible to be able to draw a weapon, the reason I don't get rid of it is because if Boral Cultist dies and I only have spells left in my hand, I have nothing to play for, and there's nothing that I'm going to be eventually able to get. For example, right here, I get 2 spells. I cannot do anything. Imagine if I would have gotten 3 spells, Boral Cultist gets destroyed, I won't have anything else to play for. Based on the hand that I got, as I mentioned in the video, I mentioned that the 4 cost is good. The other one is good too. Drawing the Darkened Spear is so important. If I hadn't drawn the Darkened Spear at this point in the game, I would have been in a bad position. Here, the reason I'm thinking about it is because I'm tempted to hold the Darkened Spear so that I can use it on the Ranger Knight, so that way I can then get multiple stacks. But it's very greedy to think like that, and I didn't want to fail on the pressure or not being able to pressure the opponent the way I would want to, right? And then right here, I'm tempted to play or not to play the Keeper of the Box. I know that they're going to be able to kill it probably, and you're going to notice that they instantly get rid of it. Why did I do this? I want to fake bait pressure. I wanted to take also away pressure from the Boral Cultist, and I wanted to be able to get as much pressure and stacks to my other units. And I mentioned even in the video, this might be a little too bit aggressive, but I want to keep pressuring and I want to see how far I can get with it. Now, right here, I have 2 Furious Wielders. I need to apply pressure. I need to get rid of this Teemo, but I also need to get rid of the other unit. Which one is more pivotal for me to get rid of? The Teemo. Why? Why not the 3-1 that's constantly applying more shrooms? Because the Teemo can level up and it can multi-stack onto me. Also, the other one is heavily based on me drawing those shrooms and does not constantly apply that pressure. It's a smaller amount and less pressure. If I get rid of the Teemo, it'll be a lot more pressure that I'm applying to the opponent. Right here, I don't use it. The reason for that is because I am baiting. I allow them to use the rest of their mana. They have 4 mana. I am baiting them to apply as much pressure as they possibly can and use as many spells as they possibly can so they can pull out as much pressure. In this case, they even level up the Teemo. The They spend a lot of mana and a lot of resources, and they also burn their attack token. And then afterwards, I decided to get rid of it. You see me laughing in the video as well. I knew exactly what they were playing for. But you have to bait those things out. If you're not baiting those things out, you're missing out on a lot of pressure, because they're going to hold on to their spells and use them at a better position at a better time. You have to know when to bait and when to play a lot of aggression. Play the aggro when you know that you cannot stop anything after that, or hold out and then wait for them to spend their mana. That way they also can defend the champion. Now, right here, it would make sense for me to do this play. It would make a lot of sense for me to do this play, but I choose otherwise. Because right here, I notice that I can kill the 3-1 with the Kayn, but my Brewer Cultist would die. It is better to play slow, play less aggressive, and let them walk into me. They're gonna let the Brewer Cultist, and I even think about it, and I'm tempted to like, man, like, is this the right play? But it is. No, look at my hand once again. I have the 6 in my hand, where I can use that spell and then get rid of it the next turn. That's what I'm thinking. So even if I don't get rid of it this turn, I'm going to be able to get rid of it the next turn. So that's 4-6. Also, the Brewer Cultist just gave another stack. And also stayed alive. That's 2 units I kept on the board, and 1 unit I took away from their board. In exchange, I did take more spell damage. Now, I need to acknowledge that there's a lot of situations that I can do. If I use a Furious Welder, it is a little tricky and a little bit difficult, because that's all my mana. I'm left with 1. If they play a spell that's able to kill Kayn, do 4 damage to them, I can no longer defend the Kayn. The Kayn dies. I don't have another Kayn in my hand. Yes, I can play the 3, but I wouldn't be able to play it till next turn, and I wouldn't be able to defend myself this turn properly. At least not the way that I would want to. Here, amazing draw, right? I was, in my sense, I did make a mistake because I'm not counting my cards. I'm not counting my cultists. If I had, I would have known that I'm going to draw Kayn on the next turn. So then that's here is when I'm able to use that. I do Kayn the attack. I play to it. I'm left with 2 mana. This is very important. Counting my mana, being left with 2 mana, means that I can spell shield my Kayn if I need to. Here is a game with another draw. I do kind of want to keep Momentous Choice, and I kind of want to not keep it. The reason for that is because I don't have a weapon. By not having a weapon, I can't use Momentous Choice for double stack. I choose to hold on to it, and I'm thinking heavily about using my Forsaken Bakai to possibly get a weapon. There's something very important that I do in this game that was pivotal in the way I'm thinking and counting my mana. I can play the Brewer Cultist and the Forsaken Bakai on my next turn. Or I can do something else. I play Forsaken Bakai again. I notice that there's a Darkened Spear. I now have double pressure. I have double pressure. I can play Brewer Cultist, take advantage of the damage, and then play into it. Why do I not play Brewer Cultist? Because I count that I will have 1 mana plus the 3 that I'm going to have, and I'm going to be able to play 2 spells. Why do I not pick the Harp first? Because the Harp can be killed more easily. If the Harp was killed, and then I would have had a 5-2, they could easily do 2 damage to the 5-2. So I wanted them to spend mana before I chose to commit to the 5-2. On the other hand, it's a lot harder to kill a 3-4 than a 5-2, where you only have to do 2 damage. In this case, you have to do 4. They spend mana. They probably don't have enough mana, or if they do have enough mana, it's going to be a little tricky. Right here, I noticed they have the 4-1. I'm not going to attack it. Why? It's not worth it. Play slow. Play the momentum of the game. You do not have to play aggro all the time. Yes, I'm going to get a stack from the spear. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to lose priority of your map to try to get rid of what would be a 2-1, moving forward. Be aware. You do not have to take those chances and those opportunities or those fights when it's not beneficial or when it's not required of you. This one's a little tricky. When you're playing against Gwen Katarina, you're going to notice that this tends to happen. The hollowed experience is really rough, and that's the reason I didn't want to kill that unit specifically this round, and I constantly thought about it, like, is it really worth killing it this round? And why I also didn't want to block is because by not blocking him, they don't get as much momentum. Getting rid of the 2-1 is a little bit more helpful, or getting rid of the 3-2 is a little bit more helpful. But if I get rid of the hollowed, then I lose out on a lot of pressure that I could possibly do on the next turn. Right here, you're going to notice I counted my mana again. Yes, I can put the Darkened Spear in my Burrow Cultist, but by not doing so, I allow myself to play Kayn next turn and then play the Expanse Protection on Kayn if they were to have anything to get rid of Kayn. Notice how many turns I'm holding on to these spells. Now, why don't I play the Spear and the Burrow Cultist? I don't want to. I don't want to because I would be wasting mana to an excess and I wouldn't be able to defend the Kayn anymore. 3 mana means that I have 2 spells in my hand that I can play to defend the Kayn if something were to happen. Remember, you have to play defensively in what you want to keep alive and what you don't. The 3-1, I chose to get rid of it at this point. I said I don't really need it anymore. I have the Kayn on my board and I can play a little bit more aggressively with it. Now, pause and look at the map right now. I have a massive advantage right now. They don't have a single champion on their board. My champion just needs 1 more attack and I'm going to be able to level up. This turn I might not be able to, but they don't know what I have in my hand. In my hand I possibly could have another Kayn that I can use to apply the same pressure. Notice again, I didn't want to play the Spear. I want to hold on to it because Kayn is an easy target. There's a lot of spells that can kill Kayn right here, guys. You have to be aware of how Kayn can get rid of, how they can get rid of Kayn. And sometimes people will stall out on you how long they hold their spells as well. Or maybe the next draw is going to be that spell, right? Be aware, hold on to your mana, be very protective of the units that you think are very, very valuable. I held that spell the whole game since the very beginning, and notice at what point I finally take advantage of it. Why am I willing to commit Kayn to this part? Because I still have another spell in my hand that I can cover the Kayn with. Now, I thought about Shadow Assassin because I'm thinking maybe I can end the game in 2 more turns, but it's a little risky. I cannot assure that, and there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Gwen gets summoned. He's in a really, really, really bad spot right now. He obviously sees that I have Kayn in play, obviously knows that I can attack with Kayn. At this point, the enemy player already gave up, and it's practically going to be a win. I'm kind of going to speed this up. Attack, gonna do 15. They don't do anything. They kind of just stall me out, and I eventually take a win. And that's more LP.